Craig, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Surely. I pledge
Pledge
allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
School committee member reports and student reports. School committee chair report. I have nothing to offer this evening. Or did you have something?
Nope, I'm all set. No, I was.
Resource committee, Mr. Stevens.
Resource and building needs are going to meet Wednesday morning.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Policy committee, Ms. Cragen.
I am meeting with the assistant superintendent after building needs, and then we will schedule our policy meeting and move a number of items forward, and we'll let you know. So hopefully by the next meeting, we'll either have policies before you, and we'll certainly have final readings for some.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Student support, Ms. Jeannie LaBelle Pierce, please.
Nothing new to report.
All right, thank you. Any questions? School personnel, nothing. Executive committee, I don't believe. What meeting?
We met with the CAP workers this past week, and we have not finalized anything. In fact, we are going to go to mediation with them.
Questions from the members? None. Okay. Student report. And I might add, we have a new student representative for
Yes.
the new school year. Brianna Herndon. Welcome, Brianna.
Thank you.
And if you would.
So the first week back from winter vacation, this past Friday, Chris Herron came to Fitchburg High School. He talked about his battle with addiction, and it made a pretty large impact on everyone that was there. It affected everyone, I think, in some way, whether or not they personally are involved, someone in their family involved with addiction, because his speech was mostly about how you can overcome pretty much anything and just become a better you. And he was more realistic with drug issues, and it hit close to home for pretty much everyone. I think it was the quietest I have ever seen the whole school together, when he was talking. So that impacted a lot of people.
Brianna, who is Chris Herring?
He was a Boston Celtics player. He was the only Boston Celtics player raised in Massachusetts. And now he goes around talking about his struggle with addiction. So our midterms start this Friday, the 13th. So
Looking forward to that, I am.
maybe if it was a different date, it wouldn't be that bad, but I think they'll be fine. Our AP math session was rescheduled because inclement weather, so it is Saturday, January 14th at Narragansett. It's for AP Calculus, AB and BC, and AP Stats. The SATs are offered at Fitchburg High School on January 21st, and a lot of people are taking advantage of the waivers that we get, so that is very helpful. And the buyback program for people that have missed more than 4 days unexcused, the Saturday school, that seems to be going very well. I heard a couple teachers talking about it with students today, and there don't seem to be any problems. People seem to be responding very well to it. Going down right away, scheduling the Saturday school with their guidance counselor, handling it very maturely. So I think that helps. Students aren't losing credit as much because they have the opportunity to buy back when they miss too much school. So I think this week was the lowest attendance that we have had in a long time. So when we go back to our Student Advisory Council, we're going to talk more about ways to improve attendance again, because it's starting to get a little lower. But I think the buyback program is helping that. Our school store, I think, is still pretty popular. People really like the items. It's online now. And I mean, I don't get to school early, but people do to buy stuff. I don't see it because I'm usually rolling in at 7:29, but people wear the clothes. They have the phone cases, the lanyards, so
Great.
everyone loves it. And our winter dance tickets, I'm pretty sure the date is January 28th. I haven't taken a close look at the signs, but they go on sale on Friday, so everyone's pretty excited about that. Everyone that buys a ticket enters the raffle for a free prom ticket. So that, I think that's going to encourage a lot of people to go. Just maybe free prom ticket. So I think.
That is?
I
Yes,
have a question. I'm
sure.
not sure
Yeah.
if it's directed to you or Principal Roach. Is there a ceremony Thursday for,
Yeah, NHS induction.
okay, and what time is that at?
Yeah.
That's at 7.
7? Okay,
And when is that?
Thursday.
Thursday. Brianna, you did very well for the first time.
Yes.
Congratulations. Very nice.
One more quick
Yes.
question. How do you get the waiver for the SATs?
We just had to go to guidance. Mr. Mercado, for my class, because I'm in the Honors Academy, he comes into our classes periodically and just updates us with stuff, helps us out, especially with Naviance. We've been using that more. He has, like, everyone has their own paper, I guess, but he hangs on to them because if we did, we wouldn't have them anymore. And it just has our school code, and when we do the application online, we just plug in the waiver, I guess.
Do you know how much it would cost without the waiver?
I think. Do you know how much? Yeah, I want to say it's like 65, and then we also get 2 subject test waivers, and those are $28.50 each, I think. So I got both of my subject tests waived, and that's very helpful. We also get an ACT waived. So
So I could run into some money, huh? I mean, yeah.
yeah.
Well over $100.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
Are there students who don't take advantage of the waiver, though?
I think I heard that like at one of the last SATs, like only 50-something% of the people who had signed up showed up. So that was something Mr. Mercado addressed to us, and he kind of told us that we can't. I mean, he told us we can't take advantage of it. We haven't had the opportunity to take advantage of it yet. I don't think anyone would. I mean, at least the classes I've been in, when he talks about it, people seem pretty serious about it. They want to do well in the SAT, and they're grateful that they have so many opportunities to take it for free.
If I could just clarify, does Fitchburg just have enough fee waivers for everybody who would take this test, or is it needs-based, or is it?
I think
It's
everyone
needs-
gets
okay.
2.
Yeah.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Brianna, excellent job.
She is
I know.
doing very well, very
And we
well.
don't
So we
normally
do the school day for everybody, and that's on October date, that's set. So every student in the whole school has the opportunity to do the SAT, and then both PSATs, the 10 and the 11, and then the pre-PSAT, which is 8th and 9th grade test. So we have the freshmen do that. After that, the students do receive the waivers. What I think Brianna is talking about is, it is up to them to get to the Saturday site, to take advantage of the test. Like I met with a senior the other day who just didn't show up, and you only get, I think it's 2 opportunities to do that. So we're fortunate with respect to the school being the free lunch situation. So we're able to do some of those things with College Board. I will say though, a big concern I have, in addition to the other College Board assessments, is the APs. So those fee waivers have been eliminated. So we're very concerned about those because that test, I think, costs in the 80s. And we're trying to figure out ways to reduce the cost for students, and we're working on that.
Why has that gone away?
It was I think a $33 or $34 fee that was sponsored by the state that has been eliminated.
State grant.
Really?
Through a state grant, it was cut, and so we've been relying on those. And the district has actually been a huge supporter of the AP test as well, in addition to Mass Insight and a few other sources as well. So we've been able to offer AP tests in certain instances for nothing, $5, $10. It's gone up a little bit each year. I think it was 15 last year. But we're working on plans right now. I think the SATs is been great, and again, the main thing we make sure to do is offer every student an opportunity to do it in that October school day test site. So it's a school day. You don't have to come in on a Saturday. We cover the cost. You cover the cost. I mean, ultimately, that's a district initiative. And the one, like I said, that really has me nervous right now is the AP, which is in May.
We need to look at a way of funding, just having
Yeah.
a safety valve somehow that.
So nobody gets shot.
Well, nobody should not be able to take that test because they can't afford it.
And that's my feeling too, especially
Yeah.
when so many students have taken the challenge of the course, they're taking on the challenge of it, and the course then corresponds with the national exams the first 2 weeks in May. But we have students who've signed up for 7.
Right.
So we're talking about, some significant costs there, 6, 7, 5. Brianna is certainly an example of one of those types of students. So I know that I've been talking with Bob and Andre and Paula about that. I think I'm planning to actually come to a subcommittee meeting at some point soon to lay out the specifics of it.
That's what I think it'd come
Yeah.
back to us up the
Yeah,
resource subcommittee, and maybe, through school choice money, we provide a sum of money that it would be available for you to make sure.
I'll definitely sit down and present to you exactly the details of it, and that would be great.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
good. Questions?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Jen.
Jen.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Karen. We don't usually ask that many questions.
What's first time we want to put you on the fire?
Break in.
Next, we have approval of the minutes for the previous school committee meeting.
Motion?
School committee meeting on December
Second.
19, 2016. Motion made
Second.
and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. No need for executive session. Communications, Ms. Cragan.
Sure. So I just wanted to remind everyone, my writing partner, Jeff Van Amberg, and I we have created a new show. It's called WCV Radio for Your Eyes. He and I do a sort of mashup of, it's in between NPR and your more sort of hysterical AM talk radio and Prairie Home Companion. So this is a fundraiser for the 8th grade field trip to Washington, D.C. Slattery's Restaurant has very kindly offered to host. We have a luncheon, it's all-inclusive, and that is Sunday, January 15th, lunch at 12:30, show at 2 p.m. The cost for all of that is just $30, and you can get tickets at Slattery's or Shaq's Fine Clothing, and I have some in my envelope right here in case people would like to purchase now. I can promise you an absolutely transporting time, and we are performing this show in a number of venues sort of east and north of here in the coming months. So very exciting to do this for the 8th graders. This is to help the kids who need the help to get there, because this is going to change their lives going to Washington, D.C. And Jeff has really good jokes about that, too.
Questions? Ms. Cragan, thank you so much. That's a great cause. And everyone out there in the viewing audience, please patronize that.
Is there a cost just to go to the show without the meal?
It's basically, it's a package. So, why bother cooking? I mean, just show up, really. And our hope is that this is something that we can do every year for the 8th grade. I think, I
Good.
talked to Jen Fisher and Fran and everybody. I mean, why not? And it gives us something to write for.
Great. Thank you. Next is public comment. Is anyone in the audience that wishes to speak? Seeing none? Superintendent's report. Mr. Iaquinta.
Thank you, and since Superintendent Ravenel is not here tonight, over the weekend, well, at the last school committee meeting, I distributed to you, and the same document went home with all the students, the example of the required Department of Ed, Title I, No Child Left Behind, district and school report card overview. You had asked at that time for copies of them all so that you could review them. And simultaneously, you had asked the superintendent about the schedule for the principals to come and present their mid-year updates on their school improvement work. So several of the principals are here tonight to basically hear your questions, because they're going to be preparing. Patty Pickards has put together a schedule. Some of them will be at the next school committee meeting, second one in January, and then the rest will be at the first meeting in February to present their updates. So I wanted to just give you a flavor of the kind of documents that we review, they review, and these are all about the MCAS, or in many cases, the PARC tests and those results for the past several years. The high school is still doing MCAS. And then I'll give you an example of the kinds of work we're doing at the district level in response to this data. Each school has their own improvement planning group, their leadership team, and they actually dig deeper into this data along with all the other. We have a variety of assessments that we're actually compiling an update that we'll bring to the Student Support Committee. So that this is kind of the tip of the iceberg of data, because it's high stakes, but it's very summative, and by the time you get it, the kids have moved to the next grade level. But it's still important because it does precipitate the accountability. It's part of the accountability system and precipitates accountability responsiveness. So there's, at the beginning of this report, there are notes about where you can find this material online. It's a public document. So on the district website, under the district profile, for example, you can find a copy of the school report cards and the district report card. So other folks don't need to actually have this pile of paper. And just a little piece of background, it's required, any school that receives Title I money is required to distribute this to all parents, so not just Title I parents. All parents are entitled to this information, along with a cover letter that describes the school's ranking, a little bit of information about where the issues are and what they're doing to respond to that, and then ways to get involved and get more information. So that and the overview was distributed to all parents just before Christmas. And those are individualized for each school. And in this packet, just to be reminded, the first 2 pages are the overview. That's the report card we send to parents, kind of cuts down on paper. The remainder of the packet is the complete report card, and that gives data on every test, every cohort of students, and all the ancillary data that's required, including the data about the national assessment. So, for example, at the district, Jeremy was talking about the work that's going on in some ways related to the high school. At the district level, the superintendent is meeting every 2 weeks with the principals of the level 3 schools, Fitchburg High, Memorial, Rheingold, South Street, along with the directors, myself, Bob, to really get live time updates on the activities that are going on that would improve the outcomes for students. We're also constantly looking at our grants and our funding to maximize the opportunities we can provide. Through Title I, there's something called Boost, which is available to level 3 schools. So at the high school, Title I Boost funding is supporting another program, MCAS tutoring, where the state money that Mount Wachusett was availing themselves of, that was eliminated. So Title I has, because they get really good results from their during the school day MCAS tutoring in math, especially. Title I is also providing something called a Core and More, which is after-school tutoring at Memorial and Rheingold, and during the day, part-time intervention support at South Street. So when we look at this data, for me or Bob, we translate it to what resources can we bring to bear, How can we mobilize those resources? What's the data? Where does it say the programs need to be improved? The Footsteps to Brilliance is a big piece of the district initiative. Part of the Title I program is that you need to demonstrate a coordinated alignment between preschool work as kids move into kindergarten and their preparedness for an academic program, and then from kindergarten to first grade. So Eva Kelly and the principals work together on a whole program around that, but Footsteps to Brilliance is a big initiative in that regard. We also have programs during the school day that are funded through Title I that cross content. So we're working with, for example, Becky Colo at Longjo, who's a science ally teacher, and she's going to be involved in an experimental book study with her students. The book is The Sixth Extinction, and the author is in Weston, Mass., so we're hoping to attract the author or possibly have a field trip to Amherst. But Title I, as issues arise, Title I is used to support the issues that are based on data in a response to propel that achievement. So superintendent's meeting with principals. We work with our DSAC partners. The principals will all be conducting, it's a survey that's part of the accountability system. It's called the Conditions for School Effectiveness. But they'll be doing that as they start their new school improvement work. A big piece of that is a professional development survey. And that will help me write the big summer DSAC grant that funds our summer professional development. And for example, last summer, the kindergarten, grade 1 and 2 teachers from South Street and Rheingold attended, we called it a homegrown institute. We had the folks from Teachers College in New York City come and conduct a week-long institute in the reading program. So we have world-class folks come here. We write the grants based on the data and the interest. So those are just some examples of kind of at a broad sweep at the district level, what we're doing to support the actions that principals want to take in response to this data. But I thought, and several are here, that it might be helpful if you had questions, rather than try to answer them tonight, so you could actually take some time to look at this. If the principals are here, if you have questions, they may be able to go back, look at the data, and then during their presentations, address your concerns or questions. So, I mean, I could go, I can talk for hours about this stuff because we live it every day. But if you had questions, either I could answer from the kind of the district perspective, or if you had questions of the principals, they could take notes, go back, and when they're doing their presentations, kind of use those as a launching point. So it's up to you.
Go ahead, Steve.
One thing, Paul, maybe for people out there that you might explain the difference between support and supplant, how Title I is a support program and doesn't take the place of.
Right. This is actually part of the federal regulations. Title I funds that there's an expectation that school districts will fund all of the regular functions, necessary jobs, roles, activities to make a school system effective. Title I supplements those with targeted funding for targeted activities based on data. So if the data says that there are challenge areas in math, Title I can target those. But it can't pay for a math teacher or math textbooks. It can't, there's an expectation those would be funded by the regular, it's a regular function of the school district. So Title I funds summer programs, after school programs, extra interventionists during the school day, supplementary materials, field trips, activities that would really compel students to go the next step. Professional development for teachers.
Thank you. I just want to say that, in looking through this today, I had some time to look at this in my office, and to our credit, there's from 2013 to the 2016 date, there's distinct improvements made each year. So we're looking better there. Are there more challenges? Absolutely, but to your credit, principals of the schools that are here tonight, thank you, and your staff for the efforts they make. And, you know, again, we've got a long way to go, but that's the positive that I took out of it. There's been improvement every year since 2013.
And I think one of the areas we look for is improvement in growth.
Yeah.
We want to see robust
Right,
growth
as opposed to
scores,
achievement.
because you need that
Right,
to move the achievement needle.
exactly.
So we're, and one of our challenges is with a high mobility rate of our students, that whether you can build on the legacy of a good, effective instructional program every year to year, grade level to grade level, it's made more difficult when you have a high mobility rate among the students. So all the more credit to the teaching staff for seeing those really productive growth rates, knowing that we have in some of our schools a mobility rate of almost 30%.
Thank you. Oh, yes.
So I have a few questions, and part of it is the growth, the SGPs. So I guess as principals think about presenting, one, I guess I'd like to know the process that all the people in the school, so all the teachers play in looking at these scores and setting your goals for what you hope to achieve on a target. So I'd be curious about that process. Trying to figure out the right way to say it, but I guess like in some of the SGPs, they're pretty low. So, and those are, that's looking at students who scored like that student before. But do we know for sure when we're looking at a kid that this is a kid that's been in our district for a fair amount of time? So to address sort of what you're talking about with the transient nature of population, and I don't know, like, is that something that can be culled out and people are looking at that? Because it would be really interesting to know if students who have been with us for a long time are achieving higher student growth. And then I guess the other point is that you can get to a point where you score so well that you can't achieve a higher student growth, right? So a student can do really well, and then they could actually not do all that well, or just a little bit less than they did, and now you've got sort of a negative effect. So I'm kind of curious about that, and whether that does come into play to hurt anybody's ratings. So I'm sorry, and I have one more. Just the school percentile, if people could kind of explain that, because is that actually measuring your school against legitimate other schools like you? Like, so, because it says it does, but I'm kind of curious where that percentile comes out. So those are just some of the.
Well, the school percentile is not, there's another comparison tool called a DART.
Right.
And
Right.
that's actually a tab on the Department of Ed profile page. And the DART tool is a way to examine data with similar
Right.
schools. The percentile is not the DART tool. The percentile is of all pre-K to 4 schools across the state from all communities, that's where the school ranks. For
Okay, so
all
same or
middle
similar grades, and grades is the only
grades is
comparison.
the only criteria for comparison. Correct.
So do we, I mean, I've looked at that DART tool before, and so you can say, let's measure Fitchburg against Lowell or
Haverhill,
or, right. And I mean, is that a practice that you all regularly do? Is that
Yes,
is that
I mean,
useful?
Jeremy,
is it
Craig,
a useful tool? I don't know. I mean, I guess it has a way of saying, okay, we have similar kinds of kids, and are we all kind of in a ballpark? But I haven't done that with the Fitchburg district to see, I don't know if any of you all have been able to do that, and whether you even think that has value, you know? Like, in the end, we have to get to, you know, a predetermined idea of what success should be on those tests.
I know you can speak to this, but when we look, we have all of our schools who look to schools across the state that have made improvements or are higher performing or have higher achievement or growth. And I know we use the DART tool to, first of all, see if there are any schools and for us, it's the urbans. And I know Jeremy has been to Lowell and Revere, Brockton, based on some of the features of the schools that would be in our similar cohort through the DART tool. The elementaries, I know, John, you went to Lowell. So, and then we also look at, beyond the DART tool, the Department of Ed creates reports every couple of years on the turnaround schools and all the level 4 schools that have made it to out of level 4. And we use that data to determine, or those reports to determine schools where their achievement or growth or performance is higher. And then if it's an urban, somewhat like us, that's a great place to make a visit. So we do use those other data sets. For me, this percentile isn't discrete enough to make it really useful, other than it's a place marker for us. Yeah. So we know where we fall in all elementary schools, or all middle, or all high schools. But then to look further at the DART tool and the turnaround reports to give us better information. And we compare and then research.
And
So
we're-
the principles, I mean, those are, you guys can, I know, Adam, you've done a lot of work with looking at, but
Yeah, I mean, the DART tool is it's great, because if you notice someone much higher than you, you can give them a call and ask them what they're doing. They can go for a visit. We've had people call us and actually come and visit Crocker to see what we've done. We posted quite a few districts this year and last for visits, and it's, you know, it's another. You can also use it to kind of convince teachers that things can be done. Or if they're coming to visit you, that we're doing the right things, and like, you know, it's a pretty big compliment for another school to come in to see what you're doing. So we've done both things. So I find it very useful. John and I are actually in the same cohort for the DART tool, which is kind of funny. It's a school in the same district, but both South Street and Crocker are on the same cohort, I guess it would be called. So it's valuable.
You all set?
Well, yeah, I think it's, sorry, I actually didn't know you all were gonna be here tonight, or I would have had a lot more. But I know you'll be talking about it. I guess I'm really interested in process at the school level about understanding what your goals are, and how you set targets, and how you measure what you're doing individually at the school. So, and that's all just, I guess, assessment-based. I honestly, one of my big questions is really just how student discipline is going in schools. And I feel like the state doesn't help. So I guess I'm curious how reporting requirements are going, and how that's affecting your school's culture and atmosphere. And I'm just wondering if that's presented a fair amount of issues in the last couple of years with some of the changes that resulted in disciplinary, I don't know, like criticisms on the part of the state to the school districts. So I guess that's one of my bigger questions, but it doesn't really have to do with the test data, so.
All set? Thank you.
Oh, I had a.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. As I'm looking through this, and I you know, the words improved, improved, and I know from visiting our schools that you know, there's enormous mental, emotional, spiritual, and intellectual, you know, activity. And that statistic that the assistant superintendent said, a mobility rate around 30%. So almost 1 out of 3 children might not be in a classroom. I know from my daughter's second grade, she got a new classmate recently. And that's wonderful. And I know her classroom is a wonderful community, and that child will be welcomed. But that child has missed, you know, months and months of cohesion, and you know, things fitting together. So, you know, my comment is this: it's unbelievable what we're able to do, and of course, the state is not paying for the Xeroxing of all of these, you know, papers that have to go home to parents. We looked at our report cards that came, and I thought, you know, that's going to 3,500 other parents as well. What I always want to hear about is reading. I always want to hear about how are kids reading, how are they doing, the love of the book, the love of the word, because that's just the key to everything. And I think where we have pushed, where the state, you know, has really pushed us back to having our kindergartners read, to having that expectation being there. And I, you know, literally last week, I saw this incredibly charming little boy. Was it at the library or was it at Market Basket? I don't remember. But talking to the parent, and I said, "Oh, where is he in school?" He was clearly older, and she said, "He's not in school." I said, "Oh, well, you know that we have free preschool and kindergarten, and you know," and we talked about the enrollment center. But I thought, you know, here's this lovely little child, and hopefully he's getting his reading at home. But you know, we have these expectations that our kids are going to be, you know, racing in first grade. And I know that's a big challenge, so I think when we see everyone again, or if anyone would like to comment about the reading piece of it, because that's really everything with the comprehension, you know, the teaching of reading, and working with so many differently abled children. So.
Thank you, Ms. Creighton. You all set?
I am.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just had a question. Would it be possible when we get the presentation of this, Paula, you mentioned the DART, and then there was a third.
The turnaround practices.
Right.
reports.
Would it be? I mean, I think that if that gives us a more complete picture. I mean, I don't want to add more to your jobs, believe me, but if that gives us a more complete picture of what's going on here. Because I think these data reflect certain things, but they don't reflect other things. And I think one of the problems is that there are things that are affecting these numbers that aren't included in here. And one of them may be that disciplinary issues, those kinds of, I mean, those numbers are in here, but
Yeah.
there may be things that are going on in the school systems that are affecting these numbers that aren't reflected in here. So if that's happening, I mean, I think it would be good that we knew about that. Is that possible, or is that like you want everything?
Well, we could certainly do a demonstration about the DART tool. I think, I mean, what happens is all of this, the relational databases that go into this are ginormous.
Yeah.
So to do a presentation about every school with a DART tool, I mean, it's just physically impossible. I mean, it's possible, but it would take hours. We could do something like that at a student support meeting so that you could see, and then maybe an example
Okay.
at a school committee meeting. And I can certainly forward to the committee members the turnaround reports so that you can have a sense of what we use. Those are the tools we use. But I think the real issue is every one of our principals they evaluate all of that, synthesize it, and then come up with improvement plan activities in response.
Right.
So, for example, around the changes in the discipline law, I have a meeting tomorrow with the assistant principals, the 2 agenda items. What are the assistant principals doing around social emotional learning, and where are their opportunities to improve that work? And then what are they doing around leadership, around curriculum instruction assessment, data, and IT, because our administrative team needs to be as coherent as our teaching team. So that's why the superintendent meets with all the principals of level 3 schools every 2 weeks.
Right.
So that trying to be as close to the work as we can from central office, because as soon as we hear there's a need, we're trying to be responsive. So if I can take some of this out to the committee, the subcommittee, some of it is examples, and then the principals are here, so maybe they can touch on, especially the processes for improvement, and then maybe an example of how, just a screenshot even of how you might use DART comparisons. And then, I'm thinking, my goodness, if we ever had the literacy coaches here, because the reading and writing program at the elementary is spectacular. And then the work our literacy coaches have done at the middle school, they've actually created, using expeditionary learning, exemplar units, they've created a comprehensive literacy curriculum for every grade using mentor text. It's just remarkable work. And then Lourdes is here, don't mean to put you on the spot, but as an innovation school, she's actually transforming her middle school to a humanities program, and they're developing curriculum. They're in the process of doing that. So in a lot of ways, I think our literacy program is, top notch, world class.
Yeah.
And we're working with the best consultants in the country right now, with the folks from Lucy Calkins and the folks from Teachers College. Just incredible work.
Yeah.
But we could certainly do that as a little mini presentation once all this sort of mid-year report is over, so you have a sense of what we're doing.
Yeah, well, I don't know if people at home understand the amount of work and the hard work that this group does.
Yeah.
And I think that knowing, that this is all of the information that they're synthesizing, and, where we are right now, we still have some issues. We have, progress to make, but if you look at where we are compared to where we've been, that's a good sign. We're on an upward trajectory, and I think it's because of, the work that this group does, so.
Persistence, grit, and
Yeah.
attention to detail.
Yes.
I don't mean to interrupt. Gretchen Gallant, the reading coach at Crocker, will be presenting.
Okay.
Excellent.
We all, yes.
Sorry. It would be great to know what you all would like to see as funding priorities. I think, I know, Ray, I think you had started to broach that topic like a few months ago, and I feel like this is our opportunity to be able to hear from you about what you think have been really promising programs, and especially I think if you're worried that you might not have those programs. I feel like there have been some big ticket items that have come through since I've been on the school committee that I would say, whatever we do, we got to keep that program. And we don't always know them, so it would be really helpful to hear that from you guys. And then my last point, I'm sorry, is just how much of a resource for each other are you? I know you call them cabinet meetings, is that what you say? Or is that something different? Or?
No, ADCO, FADCO,
Yeah, okay.
but I'm not sure that the formal meetings are
Okay.
I don't know.
All right, well, whatever it is, do you get to share? Do you get to share your, what you've found seems to really be working in the district, or, so?
I think the four of us, we talk almost every other day on what's happening in our buildings, asking for advice, how are things working in your building, asking for support. The four of us talk a lot.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Paul, for that presentation. Bob, are you taking on the superintendent's with the budget items, donations, and grants?
The grant.
Thank you.
The donations. There is an updated agenda that I distributed to everybody.
Thank you.
And also an updated list of actions required tonight for grants that we are submitting only and ones that we are submitting and accepting. So let me just go over the addition only on the grants. As I informed the school committee late last week, the school department is moving forward with a grant from the DEP, the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust, which provides assistance in having the water tested throughout our district. Historically, the city is required to test 2 schools every 3 years. One of those schools can be a daycare center within the city of Fitchburg. A number of school districts are undergoing this type of testing. At the kickoff meeting, we had the director of the Board of Health, people from the water department, and the school building maintenance director present. So they have been walking around the schools labeling all the faucets that will be tested. That labeling will continue the next couple days with dates to be determined on the actual testing. The goal is to have all the testing completed by the end of this month. That's a requirement of the grant. So that's the addition. And going back to your agenda, it seems that on action item 17799, I don't know if we had a malware from the other side of the Atlantic, changed several numbers here. So I'm not pointing fingers at any major world superpowers, but the numbers in that 17799 should all coincide in the with the recommendations to be submitted and accepted. And I've met with Dina earlier before the meeting began as to what those correct numbers are. But if you want, I'll just go through them quickly. For the Mass Council Residency Grant, it's $2,300. For the NIPRO grant, it is $10,000, which is correct. The Fitchburg Educational Foundation is correct at $12,500, but the breakdown, for some reason, is incorrect in the following language. It should be $10,500 from the Health Foundation of Central Mass and $2,000 from Montechusett Opportunity Council, not $1,000. So if you make those following changes, that's what you will be voting on tonight. And also going back to the grants that we are submitting 2 community development block grants. The first one, and this is in no priority, is the 4th phase of the Crocker Field Grandstand roof repair. We've been in communication with Lane Laxo, who's on the board of the Crocker Field Restoration Committee. And in the past, we've had the ability to match funds from CDBG. We're going to wait and see what our ability is when the FY18 budget comes out and what our needs are. And separately, we are applying for another community development block grant for $147,241 to fund the replacement of the original seating in the auditorium here at this school. So
Long overdue.
long overdue. So those are the grants to be submitted, and it looks like there is one $200 donation from Enterprise Bank that's on the agenda tonight, and the warrant is a dead warrant.
Okay. All right.
You want the, yes,
You mentioned in here Crocker Field. The light is now on the back of the scoreboard at Crocker Field. I don't think you've seen it yet. And it's shining down onto the little memorial park that we have behind there with the monuments have been moved. And I just received a picture, an email with the snow. It really looks great. Yeah, so that's coming along fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Do we want to take this up, take these numbers up 17-797, action items, up through and including 17-800? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to approve 17-797 up through and including 17-800. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It is unanimous. I don't believe there's a need for executive session.
Motion?
Yes.
Well, do we call the public testimony?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Public testimony. Is anyone wishing to provide public testimony? Thank you. Seeing none?
Motion for adjournment.
Before the motion for adjournment, sorry, one small bit of business, Mr. Stevens.
Yes.
It's a new year.
Oh, I make a motion to nominate Beth Walsh for vice chair.
I will second.
Second?
We'll all second.
You're not getting out of it.
Thank you, Ms. Cragen.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
We're all in favor.
All opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you.